bougie. Do my dance for the Lord, I'm groovy. Ay, in the Lord use me. Ay, and my life like a movie. Ride for me, I'm choosy. Ay, and my life like a movie. Got the rise for me, when I praise God, I'll never act bougie. Do my dance for the Lord, I'm groovy. You know I'm groovy. More than anything, Lord use me. Price on my life, big flex. Ay.
Yes, my people, Happy New Year!
So, our friends and family have just gone after visiting us for the past 2 weeks. Kenji's about to go to training. I need to get into some work. But before we do, we're going to sit down and record a video for you.
Let's go! Hey guys, and welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm Kenji Izabella.
And I'm Isabella Gorry, and in this video, we are going to be speaking about why we cancelled our wedding and all the behind the scenes of how we became one and how we got married.
This is an interesting one, and this is going to go quite deep. So if you're not ready to go to that deep, then you can turn the video off. But if you're ready to go deep, then stay tuned. So where do we start?
Gosh, so just to give you a little sum up, Kenji and I have been together for 15 years, and Kenji proposed to me, I think when we were at 12 years. And he proposed to me in December, and straight away he was like, and we're getting married in May. And I'm like, what? May? I'm like, this is such a short time to plan a wedding, you know? And honestly, I just had a complete...
But just to cut you there, my thought process then was like, right, if I'm going to engage now, get married, then we can have kids. I wanted that process to go rapid.
Wait, did you just marry me so I could give you
1,000,000%. What do you think that my mindset was back then?
Honestly, I just feel like I could give you way more than that.
No, my mindset was... Dun, rapid.
Why did you feel like you have to go so fast? Like the stages.
That is where I was at that time.
Okay.
And I didn't know what I was jumping into. Looking back now.
Yeah, and people always say like, but you were together for 12 years, but we want to actually take you on the journey from when Kenji proposed to me to when we actually did get married. So straight away, we had planned this like unbelievable wedding. There was 120 people on the guest list. We'd booked out like the whole top floor of like one of our favorite hotels in Madeira where we lived. We had personalized cocktails for everyone.
Yeah.
We had like, you know, just DJ, just absolutely everything arranged like in the most unbelievable way that I thought I desired my wedding to be. But then God just had complete other plans for us.
It's actually crazy because at that time, I didn't also know the difference between a wedding and a marriage. I thought it was the same thing. And my mindset back then was like, yeah, like we're getting married. Like that's the next jump of the relationship. That's just how it goes. You go into fiance, then you go into marriage. That's just the next step. But not understanding what it actually was. And, you know, especially in this day and age now, you see that foundations are just so important to a relationship because a lot of relationships aren't built on the correct foundation. And that's why when the storm comes and the wind comes, it just gets blown away. And it's like, I'm going to go and find a new relationship. I'm going to find somebody else. So that's the process that I kind of went on in myself.
So what occurred was we'd planned the wedding in 6 months. Like everyone had booked their flights to come over for the wedding. Everyone had booked their accommodation. The venue was ready, like everything was ready to go. And at the same time, COVID hit.
Yes.
And obviously we all couldn't travel and we had to call off the wedding.
Yeah, COVID called the wedding off. And in that time as well, one of my teammates, he's Brazilian and he didn't really speak a word of English. And every week we would go to his home and we would basically have like a church set up where we would worship and share the word of God, open up the Bible. And there was one night where me and Bella, we went there and we sat with him and he felt in his heart to say, listen, guys, you need to pray for your wedding. So as he said that, I was like, oh, wait, okay. what does that mean? How does that look like? And I remember that night, then we went home, and on our walk home, I said to Belle, is there something that we need to discuss?
We're checking each other.
You know, is there something that we need to discuss here? You know, is it like, let's open it up, let's speak about this. And it was crazy because then a couple months later, obviously, then COVID hits, and we're like, oh my days. Like, we need to pray for our wedding. Like, everything just wasn't coming together. Everything just wasn't making sense. And that was just something that we experienced leading up to our marriage.
Through that time of us preparing the wedding, we started to understand the difference between wedding and a marriage. And we started to see what needed to occur within us. And COVID was actually the perfect excuse to reset what this wedding was going to be, because this wedding was basically going to be about us and everyone attending, because when you're doing a wedding and a party, like, you want to make it amazing for us, but also like amazing for everyone else too. And of course, it was all our like family and friends that were invited. But we realized that this isn't a celebration for us and the guests. Like, this is a celebration of the union between Kenji and I and God. And to understand what that actually means, we got taken on this refining process, and Kenji and I became even more close through that time. But we became close because our intimacy with God was really increasing through this time too. So it was pretty stressful because you feel like you've let everyone down. You know, I've got my dress, I'm all prepared, and everything's paid for, etc. too. And you're like, what the heck are we gonna do? So through this, we were kind of seeing like when things were going to open up with Kenji's career. Obviously, we didn't know when he was going to get a day off or anything. And Kenji was like, well, I think that we should just get married then. And I'm like, I've waited so long to wear my dress and walk down the aisle, etc. too. It definitely crossed my mind that like none of that stuff mattered anymore. And it really was about me, Kenji, and God. So through this time, we're speaking to our pastor. We start marriage counseling, and we started to really understand what marriage is and what a marriage takes. And we felt like everything else in our life was all falling into place. Do you remember this?
Everything.
And it was like this marriage situation wasn't like, the wedding wasn't fitting into place. So I remember Kenji then bringing something up to me.
Yeah, so then I started to feel into myself of like, why isn't this coming into place? And even as you were just speaking then, Belle, it was like, we prepared everything. Everything was so prepared and everything was so great and it was going to be amazing, but it was for the wrong reason. It was for everyone else and us rather than what it actually was. When two people become one. We are there to express who Christ is in our lives, and this is the biggest representation that there can be. And understanding that reality and understanding that revelation, it was like it did something inside of us. In that time, I started to feel convicted. As we were becoming intimate with each other. And I remember through that time as well, that it was like, as I felt that, it was like, how am I going to bring this up to Bella? We've been together for, 12 years, 13 years at that time. Like, we feel like we know each other. You know, you feel like you really know your partner, your wife. But as soon as you go into the realm of engagement, it's a complete different place. Now you're becoming vulnerable about other things and other situations, because now it's like, I'm spending this with this woman for the rest of my life. That's the plans. That's my promise to the Lord. And then it's like, now I'm preparing to go into husband. I'm like, whoa, I have to step up. I can't be this Kenji right now. I've got to be the man that God has called me to be in order to lead my wife into who she needs to be and be the leader of the family. And that process there, that's for another video. The point I wanted to make is that I started to get convicted with having sex with Bella. And I brought it up to Bella. I said, Bella, do you also feel this way? And Bella goes,
absolutely
no,
not.
what are you talking about?
Like,
and that's when my heart dropped. I said, nah. I said, no, why did I just say that? She's going to be thinking all sorts.
I was like, no, not at all. Kenji was like, what is the difference? I was like, we've been having sex with each other for years upon years. Like, there's no difference at all. So Kenji was like, okay. And the thing is, like, God always prompts Kenji on things. Kenji brings it to me, and I've just like not caught up to it yet. And then one day I was on.
No, but wait, so now we're in that process of like, okay, now I brought it up. Now a couple of days later, it's like, okay, yeah, if she's not agreeing, that's fine. Like, sweet with me, I'm happy with that. And it was calm. Like, it's forgotten about, like, we're still moving on with life, but I'm still feeling that conviction. But I'm like, the Lord also revealed to me, like, I've already promised her to be my wife. Like, I've already, like, this is my wife. God showed me that this is my wife. So it's actually okay now. So I've come into that agreement. Now, a couple months later,
so a couple months later now, I'm on church online, and the pastor's speaking. There's nothing to do with marriage, nothing to do with anything, but it was speaking about breakthrough in your life. Wow. And it was speaking that something is blocking your breakthrough, and you are usually the one that is blocking that by doing something that you know isn't aligned with what God desires you to do. So I remember I hadn't been with this church for like a while, but they knew me. And I remember at the end of church, they say, if anyone wants to stay behind and pray over something that came up for you, then please do. So I know all the leaders are men and stuff too, you know, but none of this crossed my mind. All I thought was, this is not coming together because I am having sex. Like, it was a full-on drop in, and it was made so clear to me. And I was like, even laughing at myself, like, how did I even think that I was getting away with this? Like, you know, how did I even think that I was getting away with this? So I remember after church, I stayed behind with the leaders, and I shared with them what was going on. And I remember ringing Kenji and sharing what had gone on too. And straight away, we had decided that we weren't gonna be intimate with each other. Now, of course, we're living with each other. We've been intimate with each other for years and years and years. And there's like new boundaries that now have to be set in order for that not to happen. And it is different than our norm and like our natural way of being with each other. But guys, when I tell you everything changed from here, I mean, everything started to change from here. We started to realize that we'd put this wedding on for everyone else rather than putting it on for God. We started to realize what we'd put at the wedding, which did not symbolize God or the kingdom. And therefore, we started to see what we could actually put into place in order for that to be the case. And through this time, Kenji and I were in marriage counsel too. And we started to learn so much about each other, but also about what we expected from our marriage too, and what we desire to bring to our marriage, what we expect from each other. And we realized that I would never have wanted to get married without going through that process. Yeah. And even today, like, I use all of the things that I learned through marriage counseling.
For sure.
And that really just set this firm foundation. And of course, we can do a video on that for sure, but we for sure will be here forever and ever, and it'll go on for too long. But we can definitely speak about like the foundations of our marriage and what we learned from marriage counseling, etc. too. More than happy to share that with you. So then I went to Dubai, and every single day it's a talk about like, are we going to do this? And Kenji was like, we're getting married. Like, we're no longer doing a wedding. Like, if it's under this tree, then we are getting married. And I knew he was being deadly serious. And I also knew that God wanted us to become one and get married too. But I was like, God, my dress, like, you know, I've already got my dress. Like, and I was just still fantasizing about how I wanted it to be. So then I basically flew to Dubai.
Yeah. And I think what you're sharing is so, so powerful, because it shows the letting go and letting God decide the path and honoring the Lord through the process. Because there's so many times where, you know, we ask the Lord for breakthrough, we ask the Lord for things to happen in our life without doing what he actually says.
And God's looking at you.
And God's looking at you like, yo, Kenj, I told you to do that, but you're not doing that, my guy.
You're like praying for the breakthrough, and God's like, it's there. Like,
it's there. Like, you got to do this. I've told you, align yourself. And it was so interesting as you were speaking there, because a lot of things started to pop up again of how I used to think and how my mind used to work, and not understanding what I'm actually going into. And there's so many roles and there's so many responsibilities that you don't know until I went into that premarital counseling with our pastor, which I'm forever grateful for. I always message him today and say, I just love you. I just love you, because he helps us and he supports us so much in our marriage and in our life as well, which is really important in a relationship as well, to have that safe place where you can come. Like, we still have that, and it's important to anyone that's watching this to have that safe place where you can come and share things that are on your heart, that you know that it's a safe place for you to be vulnerable. Because sometimes it is tough to just be you and your partner, that you can come to that place where that media, at least not media, but that
to have a mediator. Sorry, to have a mediator.
Yeah, to have a mediator in your relationship in order to feel vulnerable and share the things that are on your heart as well. But then Bella went to Dubai.
I went to Dubai and I felt really confident that we were going to get married this year. And it may have not been how we once thought it was going to be. We already knew it was going to be extremely different. But when we were actually looking, there was only one date that would line up with Kenji's football for us to get married on too. And there was a possibility that there could have even been a game, because it was playoffs, if you remember, on that day as well. So I really wanted to risk it. But then this happened.
So Bella's in Dubai now. And I remember I called one of my teammates that I hadn't spoken to in so long. We were together at Swansea. And he was a guy that always used to bring his Bible into training and stuff like that. And I always found this guy so amazing. I said, nah, this guy's lit. And he used to get a little bit like, I wouldn't say bullied, but like, people would be like, oh, bro, like bantering. Yeah, a lot of bantering, and he had so much courage and he just loved on everybody. And I was like, this guy's amazing. And I remember I always spoke to him, always had a real good relationship with him as well. And we caught up with each other, and we were like,
after years,
and I was sharing how God was moving through in my life, and he was sharing how God was moving in his life. And I was like, honestly, like, we're preparing our marriage now, and blah blah blah. And I remember his wife coming in and sharing some of her stories, what she's going through. And it was just so encouraging. And I remember we went into prayer after, and they were praying over me, and his wife actually mentioned, like, I feel like a scripture coming to my heart for you. And it was Galatians 5:22. And that was the date that I had in my heart for our wedding.
So Kenji rings me now and he's like, you're not going to believe it. Tells me the story.
And they had no idea about the date. They had no idea about anything. And I said, wow, like, this is from the Lord. Lord is confirming to do this day and stand firm and have faith and belief that this was going to happen, because we knew that the enemy didn't want us to get married out. The enemy wanted to deceive us. The enemy wanted us to just not come into that union, because he knew how much power would actually come from that. And I felt such a huge expansion in myself from that as well, and understanding that God is real through that experience, because I saw it with my eyes. And sometimes, like, we can feel that God is real, feel that God is present, we can feel it, but we want to see miracles. We want to see this. We want to see things happen. We want to see the sick be healed. We want to see the blind and see. Like, we want to see these things.
100%.
So yeah, this happened, and we were like, God is real.
So we were like, we are going for it. The 22nd of May, we are getting married. But everyone's still in COVID. I'm only in Dubai, like, on business, and everyone is still in COVID. So the first thing that we needed to do was, we weren't together, and I think I was in Dubai for a good month or so. And I was like, well, we need to send out a video to everyone that was originally invited to the wedding, which was genuinely like one of the hardest things that we've ever
That was so tough, because now you have to also think about what the list will be, and all these things are coming up, and it's like, you want to make your family happy by inviting this person. It's like, you can't have that many people.
We just knew that there needs to be a reset. Hadn't gone back to Madeira yet to find out how many people were going to be able to, but we knew that our desire, and I think at this point it was like 10, so we were going to have your family,
yeah,
my family.
intimate.
Very, 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 very intimate. So we got on Zoom and we put a video together to explain the situation. But at this time, we are so certain that we're getting married, but we also understand that COVID is happening and therefore there's not going to be these 120 people at the wedding. And also, there was no longer a desire to do it the way that we planned. I mean, girls still desired to wear a dress, of course, but just like everything that we were doing, it was no longer it. So we make a decision and now God starts opening up like crazy. So I've got my dress and I then go home now. And we start to scope out the venue. Yeah. And guys, it was so funny. So first of all, we're going to the venue that would have been the place that we really did desire to get married at too, but with the big numbers of people, it just wouldn't have worked out for us. So now we're looking at this unbelievable venue and we're going around and the hotel manager is telling us all of the restrictions, right? But me and Kenji aren't coming into agreement with any of
every time she spoke, I was like, I rebuke that. I rebuke that thought.
So she was like, okay, so you can, what we were clear on is that we could have 30 people, including anyone that was working at the wedding, right? And we weren't going to mess around with that because we knew that was something that they had set in stone. But it was more like, you know, the
masks and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was like, you guys are all going to have to wear masks. The wedding has to be over at 7 p.m. There can only be a certain amount of time. There can't be no dance floor. There can be no dancing. And like,
there's no music.
Dance, you know?
There's no music and stuff. Because it also was like, there was a limit of how long you could be outside. Everyone had to be home at 7.
Yes.
So there was a limit.
Yes.
That whole time. Anyway.
So now we've gone and now we've told our family we're getting married and we've literally said, if you come into agreement with it, you're coming. If you're not, like, you're just not coming. Like, if you've got doubt in your mind, don't even accept the invitation. But guys, everyone starts to believe that we were getting married, but there was no flights. Like, the island of Madeira, like, didn't have flights going in and out, right? And it was just so strict there, like, so strict.
And honestly, guys, this is also so important if you are in this process of believing a miracle or believing in something that God is going to do. It's important of who you share this to. I remember looking back, like I was so conscious of who I was saying this to in order to make sure that everybody that I shared it with understood and had the same belief on the God that is in this.
Yes.
Because as soon as you share it with someone, I remember I didn't even share it with any teammates. I didn't share it with anyone because I didn't want anybody, but what about this game? And what about this playoff? And what about this? To be any fear in my mind that I knew that this was going to happen.
Yes.
So just wanted to share that.
So then one flight comes on and it's 5 days before the wedding. So I'm like, guys, bear in mind, like through this time, we've looked at like private jets, everything to get people over, anything, because we really did think that it was just going to be like instant, like immediate family, like straight away. So we look at private jets and stuff, we're like, this is ridiculous. But we were erring on the side of delusion, but at the same time, we just knew that we had this belief that it was going to go ahead. So anyway, everyone booked this flight. Everyone booked this flight.
Oh, your mum was so cute as well. She was like, guys, the flights are on now. The flights are on now. She'd be on every day and she'd be messaging my mum. Oh, you need to book now. Are you on this flight? And it was just so lit.
It was so beautiful. So it got to the day before. And you know, I said that I really wanted my dress, right? Well, my dress was stuck in customs. And I got to the stage of, I'm no longer even going to be wearing my dress. All I could imagine myself was like walking down the aisle like a Zara white jumpsuit and being like, this is exactly how God wanted it to be. Like he didn't want anything of me. Like he just wanted like all of him through me. So there was a lot of things that actually happened with that. But when I say like miracles occur when you pray, the only reason why I actually ended up with my address is a guy that I spoke to in customs stayed 6 more hours at the end of his shift to put it back on himself, an aeroplane for my family to go pick it up the next morning before they came. And they came to Madeira for the wedding, right? So there was a lot of other things going on through that
wedding
time.
Dress, the veil, the everything.
Like all of my bridesmaids' boxes were stuck in customs. They said that we were going to have to pay like 50% of what everything was that was in there. Obviously, we put exactly what the value was going to be because it was our dresses and everything too. Anyway, so
crazy.
The day comes, everyone gets to Manchester Airport, and all of the flights are cancelled except the one to Madeira.
I can't believe that.
All of the flights are cancelled except the one going to Madeira. Everyone's on the flight. No one's even saying anything because they need to make sure they get.
Yeah, they were like,
at Madeira
we don't
too.
believe this until we.
No, they believed it. We don't want to. We're going to stay centered in ourselves, and we're just going to make sure that we get to you. So anyway, they come in, and we hadn't seen them in so long too.
It was emotional, wasn't it?
But this wedding day went to a full-on wedding week with 25 of our closest family and friends, because basically what we were going to do, we were then able to do a small amount of people for a week instead. And you know me, Mrs. Planner, there was something on every single day. I don't know if anyone actually desired to do the full itinerary, but you know, they did. So they came now. Everyone's there, all lit. And then I get a call that night. I got a call on the Monday night from my housekeeper. And my housekeeper was coordinating with the wedding planner that I had too on things that needs to be done. And I left it all over to my housekeeper, who basically became our assistant and our second mum over in Madeira too. And she phoned me on that Monday night and she said, I've got something to tell you. I've been attempting to work this out from Friday and it's now the Monday. But everything that you've planned and set up with the wedding planner, it's not been done. Huh? How does that even make sense? I'm like, what do you mean it hasn't been done? Like, that it's impossible not to be done. Like, I've sent her everything. I've paid her for everything. Like, I've sent her dimensions, things, like all these different things. And she's like, it's just not. So at this stage, I haven't told everyone, but I've told Kenji, I've told my mum, and I've told my bridesmaids. But I didn't have the energy to speak directly to this wedding planner, ask for refunds and all these things. Like, I just needed to get on my wedding. So everything at our wedding, my housekeeper and myself had basically, and my bridesmaid, had put together in 4 days. So remember when I first got engaged and I was like, 6 months for a wedding? Oh my days. No. In 4 days, everything was arranged, from the platform that we stood at to the flowers that we were standing under to all of our menus. We had these like beautiful scripture cards to all of the signs, to the napkins, like every single thing, to a dance floor with our initials on and everything was done in 4 days. Wow. And
you can see that video as well. I think we should post it on YouTube, actually. We've not posted it on YouTube.
Maybe we'll have to wait for our anniversary for that.
Yeah, and we'll put it on.
So you can see on the video, and like the video is beautiful, right? And we did it the way that we desired to do it. Of course, there was a few things that if we had time and extra too, they'd be there. To add another layer on top of this, we're also on an island, right? So getting access to things isn't as easy as it would be if we had a wedding in England, for example, right? But the wedding was so beautiful, and it looked like I'd probably spent 2 years planning the wedding too. And of course, that wasn't the case. So the wedding week was unbelievable. And then the wedding day comes. And through this time, we'd really been praying that the Spirit was really, really present at our marriage, that every single person could feel it and they were touched by it too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was the biggest prayer of ours, that everything would come together and that everybody would be impacted by God at our wedding as well. And that for sure took place. Like, everybody was impacted. It was such a beautiful moment. And especially marrying my wife was a moment that I will never forget. And there was a huge shift inside of us and inside of our marriage that we're stepping into, that we are not the same people from before the wedding that we were after the wedding. And that is to encourage anybody that is thinking about marriage, or, you know, in that process of getting married, to make sure that God is in the center of it. Because one thing that I've realized in a relationship is that if the foundations are not correct, if the foundations are not on the solid rock of Jesus Christ, it can it can really waver, and it can really when the wind comes and if it was built on sand, it's gonna just literally disappear, and that is what's something that we've learned through our relationship as well. So please do take that into consideration as you are preparing to get married as well.
Yeah, and like God really does have plans for us to prosper, and all of the desires of our hearts like will be fulfilled. And on the day of the wedding, the restrictions lifted. So instead of having like wedding till 7 p.m, we were able to be there till like 11 p.m. No one was wearing masks or anything.
No masks
on our pictures or anything like that. Everyone just had the most amazing time. And I just remember like continue looking over at you and just looking around everyone as well, thinking like, wow, God created all of this, even from like the singer that's now such an amazing friend at our wedding too. And we love his music so much, and how we were connected to him, Stevie, who also does the song or our intro video, etc. as well. That all came in such a God-ordained way. Our pastor coming, the people that prayed over us at the wedding, etc. too. Like it all just was so perfect, and it was nothing that we could have done, because everything that we tried to do, it just got blown away. And I think that's just in life too. Like we can be striving for things and we can want to do it in our own way. But when God's calling you, and when you also know what God desires for you to do too, there is no other way. And therefore, whatever way you try to go, God will always bring you back in to the alignment, and you can continue to, push against that. But God really will continue to pull us in. And that is why we cancelled our first wedding. A year later, we then had our wedding and we got married there too. And honestly, it was all just a complete miracle.
And we thank God.
We thank God.
Hallelujah. And now we're sat here sharing this with you guys. So it was an absolute miracle. But there is so many more miracles that we would love to share on here as well. And if there's also a miracle that's on your heart that you're moving through right now or are experiencing right now, we would love to hear it in the comments.
We love that stuff.
Because we love that stuff. And there was definitely so much more that we want to share and share with you guys. So if there's also anything that you want us to share, please do put that in the comments as well. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell in order for you to be informed when the next video drops. God bless you, and thank you for joining us.
Price on my life, big flex. Hey.